But if we were able to associate this sound with a new stimulus, save the food, we've achieved pulling a natural response from you. Save the food. Why are we doing this, you may ask? Save the food. Because this ad is trying to change your after-meal behavior through brainwashing. Because food waste costs the average family $1,500 a year. Save the food. Cha-ching. And $1,500 extra bucks is like getting a pay raise. Save the food. Cha-ching. You're promoted. Which could pay for your child's braces. Save the food. Cha-ching. You're promoted.
Check out my braces.
So when you hear this sound, rethink your behavior. Cook it, store it, share it. Just don't waste it. For tips and recipes, visit SaveTheFood.com. Brought to you by NRDC and the Ad Council.
Take an ordinary putty knife and scrape off the old wax ring. Place the new wax ring over the flange, then line up the bolts with the bowl and gently set in place, making sure a proper seal is created with the flange and drain. Next.
Dad?
Yeah, sweetie.
Is that an old plumbing manual?
Oh, yeah, honey.
We really need to get some new books.
Right, do you want me to stop?
Nah, I kinda wanna know how it ends.
Okay. Tighten the bolts, line up the flushing valve to the opening in the top of the bowl, and secure the tank with a screwdriver and crescent wrench.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Fox Sports Radio 1400, WCOS Columbia, an iHeart radio station.
It's time for Clemson Sports Talk with Lawton Swan.
Ready, set. Just call me Swanee.
Tiger style. Tiger style.
Finally, Clemson Sports Talk has come back to Drive Time. Hello, everybody. Lawton Swan back in the saddle once again. It is the show that shakes the Southland. Clemson Sports Talk for you each and every afternoon as you make your way around the great state of South Carolina and beyond, listening to us on fantastic radio stations like Fox Sports Radio 1400 The Midlands, Sports Radio 100.1 The Fan in Florence, 920 a.m. in Manning. Good to be with you. And if you're wondering, why do you open with the same opening all the time? Well, here's the thing. Like, I'm hoping that if you run into a Tiger fan and they tell you, oh, man, I live in Florence. You know, they tell you, oh, I live in the, in the lower state. You say, hey, you listen to the show that shakes the Southland on 920 a.m., do you? You know what I mean? So the PD, the Midlands, the Low Country, coaching you up. The iHeartRadio app from 4 to 6 on Fox Sports Radio 1400, from 6 to 8 on Sports Radio 100.1 The Fan. So multiple times you can catch this program. Thank you for being a part of it. And, of course, on a Wednesday afternoon, you know it, our buddy Roddy Jones jumps on the program from the ACC Network to chat with us about everything going on in the world of the Atlantic Coast Conference. So we'll get hooked up with him. Hour number 2, potentially Brett Ciancia. If not, no worries, no stress. We'll get through nonetheless. 803-450-0086. You can text that number and be a part of the program. Roddy Jones joins us here on a Wednesday. Roddy, what's up, big guy? How you been?
I'm good, Lawton. How are you?
I'm good. I tell you, it feels like we're starting to hit our stride a little bit with the Atlantic Coast Conference and the SEC getting a couple of weeks under their belts now, and obviously we're just running towards the Big Ten coming on board. So college football's feeling a little bit more legit every single day, man. I know you love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the last couple of weeks where you've had kind of a full slate of games. You know, it's not just the ACC and then you're trying to fill the rest of your time with Conference USA or the Sun Belt or any of the other conferences that are playing. This feels like it's starting to feel more like a normal year because you've got ACC games throughout the day. We obviously had a lot of SEC games. You've had some SEC upsets, which have been fun to watch. And the Big 12 has been imploding, and that's been it's been good to not be the conference that is imploding for once. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and the other thing too is because the schedule's expanding, we're getting some games on Thursday nights and Friday nights, and you'll be working the Friday night game, Louisville at Georgia Tech, your alma mater. You'll be working the sidelines for that game that's going to be on ESPN. What do you expect to see in that matchup between two second-year head coaches?
Well, I think the interesting thing is going to be how Louisville responds after that loss to Pitt. This is a Louisville team that came in with a lot of hype. I mean, there was a lot of talk around Louisville because of what they did in year one under Scott Satterfield. And I think that was a little unfair to Louisville. I mean, this was a team that needed a mental rebuild as much as anything, and they got that last year. And that led to a huge jump in their performance on the field and obviously the number of wins. But the next step that you can take from going from an 8-win team forward, it has to be talent driven more than anything. And I'm not sure that happens. So I think Louisville's still a good team. But the sort of disappointment that we have early in the year at their performance, I don't think it's quite fair because I think it's based on unreasonable expectations. So the big thing I'm looking for is they respond. And then for Georgia Tech's schedule is tough down the stretch, and there's not a lot of games you can point to and say, yeah, that's a definite win. So after a disappointing game to Syracuse, their response too is going to be interesting to me after a bye week. How does Jeff Sims, after probably the worst game of his young career, how does he come out and perform against the Louisville defense that is much improved and played pretty stingy defense against Pitt a few weeks ago? So it's going to be a fun matchup. I'm really looking forward to it.
He does a great job for the ACC Network, SiriusXM. He is Roddy Jones on Twitter at RoddyJones20. Okay, Roddy, so being around this game, you know how it works. And yesterday, Rhett Lashley, the offensive coordinator at Miami, was asked about Clemson potentially stealing signs and maybe being one of the best in the business at that. Lashley didn't take the bait. He said, look, that's a part of the game. If you can't signal your plays in better, then that's on you. And so my question really becomes, we see how intricate some of these systems are to get plays in. I mean, in your mind as a former player, how real is that as a part of this game?
It's pretty real. It's sort of one of those things that you hear about a number of schools across the country and how good they are at trying to figure out what you're doing. And that is, Rhett Lashley has been all over the place. He knows the drill. I mean, he's been in places. I'm not going to name any specific places, that he's been that he may have seen it, but the conferences and the schools that have bigger budgets and more analysts and more things like that, those people are better at trying to figure out what you're doing because you have more heads to put together. So I think it's real. I don't think it's something that players harp on. I don't think it's something that coaches are going to really harp on, especially not in public. But there will be a concerted effort to have maybe more dummy signalers or switch up who's signaling in the plays during the course of the game.
Yeah, and I think too, Roddy, when you look at it, it's sort of, and I hear it a little bit in your voice, it's kind of this, I feel like I'm hearing it like a sort of this, we don't really talk about that kind of thing. I mean, is that how this is perceived to a degree for some people?
Yeah, and there's quite a number of those types of things in college football. Things that are sort of acknowledged in the inner circles of college football, and when you get coaches in honest moments, they will let you know kind of how they feel about certain things. But things like stealing signs, with the prevalence of up-tempo offenses, with the prevalence of these check with me's from the sideline, all that stuff. You have defensive coaches and staffs and programs that have invested in trying to figure out what you are doing. So it happens across college football. Again, it's not something that Miami is going to say, hey, we lost the game because of this. It's not something that people are going to come out and specifically blame Clemson for, because if Clemson's doing it, like, they're just doing something that everybody else is doing. And if they're better at it than everybody else, and that's just one more thing that they are better at, than everybody else. And like, if you are to accuse Clemson of this, like, it takes away from the job that Dabo has done building that program. Clemson wins the vast majority of their games because they're a better football team, not because, if you believe that it's going on, not because they're stealing offensive signs.
Roddy Jones is on Twitter at RoddyJones20 again. He'll be working the sidelines of that Louisville matchup at Georgia Tech. That's Friday night, 7 o'clock on ESPN. Make sure that you check it out. Everybody knows about Clemson and Miami. It's a matchup of top 10 teams in the ACC, top 7 teams if you want to get technical. But there's another big matchup in the league. Number 19, Virginia Tech's on the road at Chapel Hill, taking on a number 8 North Carolina team. 4 teams from the ACC inside the top 8 right now. That's a first in the league's history. This North Carolina team, I think it's fair to say at this point, Roddy, I can't remember if you've seen them or not in all of your travels over the past few weeks, but I would say they've underwhelmed a little bit out of the gate, maybe sort of like what you mentioned about Louisville, just not living up to what people thought. Nonetheless, how big of a matchup is this game that's sort of overshadowed right now, that's also taking place on Saturday, ABC at noon?
I think it's a huge matchup, mostly for jockeying position below Clemson, Miami, and Notre Dame. It's kind of who is that next team, and you're going to get a lot of different responses. And I think Carolina and Virginia Tech are right in that mix. And yeah, that Carolina is another one to me that, like, I don't know if they're quite going to live up to our expectations this year. I think they're going to be a really good football team. But if they don't finish, third in the ACC, will it be looked at as a failure of a year? I don't think that's quite fair, because if they lose, one game to Virginia Tech, and then they got to match up against Notre Dame later on in the year, like, does that really say that they did not have as good a year? I don't think so. To your point, I have seen North Carolina. I saw them against Syracuse week 1. And to me, like, when they came out at the beginning of the year, they played against a Syracuse team that they didn't know a lot about. It was a completely new defense, and they had not seen what Tony White was going to do with this personnel that he has at Syracuse. What I saw last week was kind of the same thing. They obviously knew more about Boston College, but it felt, again, like week 1, where offensively they weren't bad, they just weren't explosive. And that's the thing that I think we are missing from North Carolina early in this season, is the explosive plays that go for touchdowns, specifically from the receiver group. I think the running backs have done their job. Michael Carter had a great game against Syracuse. Javonte Williams had an explosive play, a 40-something yard touchdown catch against Boston College. So I think that the running back group has sort of been carrying it. We haven't seen the explosive play from Daz Newsome. We haven't seen the explosive play from De'Ami Brown. We haven't seen Bo Corrales or Toe Groves get loose in the secondary for a 40 or 50-yard touchdown. And that's what we're missing. And I think what has been shown early in this season is that if you can make North Carolina have to drive down the field on 8 to 10 play drives, they'll continue to be efficient, but it's going to give you a chance to win the game because they're not going to put up 40 points.
Roddy Jones on the show that shakes the Southland, previewing the weekend in the Atlantic Coast Conference. That Boston College team just a 2-point conversion away from tying up North Carolina late before throwing an interception that was returned to give the Tar Heels that 4-point margin. Another game that in a typical year, Roddy would probably, I don't know. I don't know how we look at Florida State, Notre Dame by comparison to what Clemson's kind of become, but I would argue that in a lot of years that game would overshadow Miami and Clemson, but it doesn't right now. Florida State last week was trailing Jacksonville State. Former Clemson Tiger Eric Cooper was leading the Gamecocks to a lead on the road in Tallahassee. What in the world do you see from this Florida State team? I think this weekend's going to be rough.
Yeah, I think this weekend's going to be rough too. And I think the bigger thing is it was good for Florida State to get a win last week because it was funny going into that game. You're asked about how does Florida State rebound and all of that, and I'm like, look, Florida State should win the game, and they probably will, but they are not going to have the best quarterback on the field, no matter who they put at quarterback. Like, that is going to be Derek Cooper for Jacksonville State, who has rewritten the record books there.
Right.
So I think Florida State is going to be overmatched in the trenches on both sides of the ball. And Notre Dame has had a chance to get healthy at receiver. They were playing without Kevin Austin, who was maybe their best receiver. He had a broken foot, and he looks like he's going to return. Braden Lindsey was hurt early in the season, and he is now healthy. Bennett Skowronek had some hamstring issues. He's now healthy, and that's been the big question mark for Notre Dame is how are they going to be at receiver after losing Cole Kmet and Chase Claypool? And those three guys I just mentioned are really good players. So I think Florida State's going to be overmatched. And the other thing is we're going to get to see Kyle Hamilton, the fantastic all-world safety for Notre Dame, come back, and maybe Hamza Nasruddin at Florida State as well. But I think that Notre Dame will quickly remind us, the people who have forgotten, that they are probably the second best team in this conference, if not second, then they're third, right in that conversation with Miami, depending on what goes on Saturday. So I think Notre Dame rolls, and it's a shame because you put that matchup together anytime the last 20 years. This is one of the few years that we just gloss over it as a foregone conclusion.
Notre Dame looking for their 20th consecutive home win in that matchup. The other team that's got a nice little winning streak in Death Valley, the Clemson Tigers, #1 team in the country. Last week they gave up over 400 yards to a Virginia team offensively, really sort of pressing Brent Venables. I don't know if he slept all that well this week, kind of watching that tape, but I do think it served Clemson well, Roddy, that they were challenged. And it's not something that in the past 5 years they've been challenged all that often. And I think with a team like Miami coming in, that was probably some good medicine for the Tigers this past weekend.
Yeah, I thought Grace Rayner's article in The Athletic about what happens when Clemson underachieves in a game, what happens the game after, is probably the best sign that Manny Diaz was likely not happy to see Virginia challenge Clemson in any sort of way. Like, that game was never in doubt, but Virginia did give Clemson some issues. And I think that Clemson is going to respond. That being said, the question on how you deal with D'Eriq King is a big one. I think there's a couple of things that are fairly clear to me. One, the defensive line missed Tyler Davis. You missed that experience. You missed the fact that he's played a ton. But two, I'm not sure this defense is as fast as the one that they had a year ago. And that's honestly to be expected when you lose Isaiah Simmons, who ran a 4.3 something at the combine. Like, he was incredible. But when you lose that guy, when you lose Tanner Muse and Kayvon Wallace, who both ran better than expected, and you replace them with Nolan Turner, who's a good player, I just don't know if he's as fast, and Landon Zanders, who is a fast player but still a young player, I think it's going to take a step back. So I don't know how Miami's going to try and take advantage of that, but I think that they will. And I would not be all that surprised if you needed a spy on D'Eriq King. If Zanders drops down to be that guy, they bring in another safety, and maybe it looks a little bit more like the defense you saw a year ago with Isaiah Simmons. So I think Brent Venables is going to have something that Miami is not expecting. You've got to have something to sort of neutralize the running ability of D'Eriq King, and you've got to have something to take away those tight ends, which is a challenge. So I think it was probably good for Clemson, like a blessing in disguise, for them to get challenged, because I can assure you that week of practice that they've had on the defensive side of the football has been intense.
Couple of minutes left here with Roddy Jones on Clemson Sports Talk again. Go follow him today on Twitter at Roddy Jones20. This matchup between Clemson and Miami, just the 17th all-time matchup between two ACC teams ranked inside the top 10. It also ties for the highest combined ranking in a matchup of ACC teams in the history of the league. You mentioned Clemson, and I think about their consistency, and what's amazing to me is that people talk about it, but few coaches actually pull off the type of consistency that Clemson's been able to do, keep their guys locked in no matter who the opponent is. What makes, in your opinion, Dabo Swinney, Roddy, as good as you know him and as few times as you've been around him, but what do you think makes him so good at getting his guys in that right frame of mind?
Well, I think it's first off, it's top down. Dabo has these characteristics of his program that he's not going to compromise on. And that's been a consistent message for his entire career, really. And honestly, the fact that he has had such consistency in his coaching staffs also helps with that. He treats the player, he treats the person, and he treats the everyone around him sort of the same way. Like, he values you as a person and then a football player. So I think that's something that's really special. And then there's sort of a cultural thing baked in there, a secret sauce, if you will, that allows it to be passed down from team to team. I kind of look at it as like John Calipari said something a few years ago that I thought was really refreshing. He basically said, like, hey, yes, I tell these guys when they come in, I actually want them to be one and done. I want them to do that because it's what they want. And honestly, with their talent levels, it's what they should be. And as a coach, the thing that I want is what they want. I want to win games, but I want to help them achieve. And Dabo Swinney has all but said the same thing. Like, Trevor Lawrence is going to graduate in December and then go be the number one pick in the draft. At every other school, there would not have been that plan in place to say, hey, Trevor, you're going to be you're a 3-year guy. You're here for 3 years. So how can we maximize your time here? And that, to me, is what makes that place special. They acknowledge the fact that they're going to recruit uber-talented players that are likely only going to stick around for 3 years. So they plan on the other side, on the person side, they plan to make them as successful as possible in those 3 years at Clemson. And if you decide to stay longer, great. Stick around. Get a master's. Do whatever you want. But if you are like Trevor and you are going to be a 3-year guy and leave, you already have that degree. So you've accomplished all the things that you wanted to come here and accomplish. And I just think that's so special. There's so many schools that would say to a guy, well, I know you want to be a 3-year guy, but the chances are yada, yada, yada. Like, no, we're going to treat you as a 3-year guy until you're not. And if you're not, then that's fine. You've got your degree and you can come back. But if you are, you're prepared for all of it. So I just think Dabo's done such a great job of figuring out ways to help his guys achieve what they want to achieve while having fun. And he's done it for years and years. From the time he took over in 2008 against the Georgia Tech team that I played on until now, guys have absolutely loved that school. And it's because Dabo invests in them as people as much as he invests in them as football players.
Roddy Jones here on the show that shakes the Southland. Roddy, take care, my man.
Hey, I appreciate it.
Dependable traffic, sponsored by Pope Davis Tire and Automotive, home of the best tire prices in Columbia, guaranteed. Fox Sports Radio 1400 traffic.
Traffic tie-ups this afternoon include Lake Drive at Citizens, also a wreck I-20 eastbound at the Broad River Road exit. The 103.5 FM WVOC traffic tip line number is 343-1055.
This report is sponsored by the South Carolina Education Lottery. Zap 'em to win. The Space Invaders Instant Lottery game has landed at your local SC Education Lottery retailer. This $2 instant ticket gives players 6 shots at the top prize of $30,000. See SCEducationLottery.com for game odds and details.
When you get in your car, you need the best directions to get where you want to be.
Will arrive at your retirement in 8
The
years.
same is true for your retirement. You need a voice to guide you along the way. Join Pat Struby for Save Your Retirement with Pat Struby. Pat's 18 years of experience can help make your retirement journey feel like a drive down easy street.
Arriving at your retirement.
Saturdays, 6 a.m. on Fox Sports Radio, and Saturdays at noon and Sundays at 9 on 560 WVOC for Save Your Retirement with Pat Struby.
For all your plumbing problems and needs, On Call Plumbing, Heating, and Air is here to help. Available 24/7 to serve you with trained technicians, not trained salespeople. Whether your plumbing job is large or small, it's the right job for On Call. Receive installations, repairs, and everything in between from the company you can trust to do it right. On Call is your locally owned and operated plumbing company. Go to OnCallSC.com.
On Call Plumbing, Heating, and Air. Pick up the phone and we'll be right there. Call 781-HELP.
You don't usually get a stock tip from a 16-year-old, but I'm here to tell you about a different kind of stock. It's called Better Futures, a stock for social change that's not about making money. Instead, you invest to help students like me go to college. This is beyond a simple donation. It's the opportunity for America to invest in its kids and take an active stake in the future of the country. The return on your investment isn't money. What you get back is knowing you protected our potential. So one day, that potential can grow up to become surgeons and architects, executives and engineers. people who can change the future just by being a part of it. My name is Alicia, and I'm your dividend.
Invest in better futures with UNCF. Visit uncf.org/invest. A mind is a terrible thing to waste, but a wonderful thing to invest in. A public service announcement brought to you by UNCF and the Ad Council.
When I grow up, I want to be a new pair of blue jeans.
When I grow up, I want to be a kid's first computer.
When I grow up, I want to be a glass countertop in a new home.
When I grow up, I want to be a kid's best birthday present.
When I grow up, I want to be a football stadium.
When I grow up, I want to be a warm fleece on a cold day.
When I grow up, I want to be a fancy
When I grow up,
backsplash.
I want to be a bike that races around the
When
country.
I grow up, I want to be a bench on a forest trail.
I want to be a rocking chair on
When
a
I
sunny
grow up,
porch.
I want to be a skyscraper.
I want to be a...
I want to be
When I grow up, I don't want to be a piece of garbage. And if you recycle me, I won't be.
Give your garbage another life. Recycle. Learn how at iwanttoberecycled.org. A public service advertisement brought to you by Keep America Beautiful and the Ad Council.
Now, back to Clemson Sports Talk with Lawton Swan on Columbia's home for the 2018 National Championship Tigers, Fox Sports Radio 1400.
Always good to catch up with Roddy Jones here on the show that shakes the Southland. Man, he's incredible. Went a little long there into the break. Apologize if you missed just the back end. Essentially just put a bow on it and wrapped it up. Again, the Clemson Tigers this weekend, have played in so many big games. And that's why I called this the consistency edition, because it's so true. And it is really speaks volumes about this program, Dabo Swinney. I think it's part of the reason that we've seen the fan base be a little, I'm not going to label you disgruntled at an 18-point win, but you felt some kind of way at some points during that ball game. And I've said this is the third day in a row, and I didn't read Grace Rayner's piece in The Athletic, but I think that there's a great point to what Roddy was saying, and part of the reason that I posed the question, as a matter of fact, let's see. I'm going to see. I do subscribe to The Athletic. I didn't shout anywhere that I'm not going to pay to read their work. But there was the thought process for me on Clemson and the response is one of those things that I think really makes people recognize, yep, it was my question that she used. Thank you, Grace. Coach Swinney said in my response, he said, we really haven't had any adversity if you really think about these first two games. We've had some bad plays, but there's really never been a moment where where the game was on the line or you felt like you didn't have control of it, and then you get in a game like this and you're playing a real good team and that was in the ACC Championship a year ago. He said, I'm happy with how they handled the adversity, and it'll make us better. Honestly, it was a challenge, and I think we needed. Glad I could contribute to The Athletic with my fantastic questions for Coach Swinney this weekend. But that's kind of the point. That is a part of their success. By the way, like, share, subscribe, do all those things if you're watching right now. Start one of those watch parties. Bring in some of your Gamecock friends. We'll let them hang out with us.
So you can continue to peek over the fence at the best radio show in the nation.
The late Cleveland man delivering in the clutch for us. Yeah, I think that the consistency that this program has established comes back to multiple fronts. One being, though, how they handle adversity, the challenge in which they play every game. But then on the flip side, or every snap even, but then on the flip side, and I think to do what they do, we used to laugh it off a little bit. You would, I would, everybody would. Dabo Swinney, you got the You got the Citadel rolling into Clemson. You got Presbyterian coming into Tiger Town, a game that most people call a cupcake. And somebody would say, Coach, something about this ball game. And he'd say, if you don't think this is the most important game on the schedule, then lose it. Like, everybody's eyeballs get so locked in, especially if you had like a bye week, or not necessarily a bye week, but what you'd label a cupcake game before this Miami game, or at any point on the schedule. And the thought process sometimes was always trying to look ahead, think about that next week matchup. And, Coach Sweeney would shut people down in a hurry and say, listen, if you don't think that the game we're about to play in Death Valley against you fill in the blank you, actually, maybe I should just say you fill in the blank. See what I did there? Then lose it. You'll find out how important that game was. You'll find out how significant that matchup was. It used to catch laughs. Fans would go, golly, can you believe Dabo's talking about the Citadel like that, building them up? But if you build them up, or if you don't build them up, or if you overlook them, and you get caught sleeping, you end up losing to them. South Carolina didn't lose to the Citadel because the Citadel had better players. South Carolina should have won that game. They didn't have the focus. They didn't play with the attention to detail. That's how you lose games like that. You've got better talent. You've out-recruited the Citadel. What Clemson has created with their incredible level of consistency is a program that when you go back and you really think about what these seasons have looked like under Dabo Swinney in recent years, it's easy to correlate or track from the first national championship trip where you were beaten by Alabama and you went 14-1 through this past season where you entered the national championship, again, undefeated, losing in the title game and finishing 14-1. That stretch from 2015 till now is easy to track. The Tigers are like 72-5 in that stretch. They've lost 2 Atlantic Coast Conference games during that time. I mean, there's some absurdity to it all. But even if you go back further, starting at 2012, the year that Clemson defeated LSU in the Chick-fil-A Bowl, that Clemson Tiger team went 11-2. But what you might not remember is that they entered that South Carolina game. They entered that South Carolina game 10-1. Think about that. 2013, that team finished 11-2. Won the Orange Bowl against Ohio State. They entered that South Carolina game 10-1. Now, I don't know about you, but in the history of college football, especially in the college football playoff era, and this wasn't the college football playoff era, we were still in the BCS era, but in the college football playoff era, if you enter the final game of the regular season with a singular blemish on your resume, you are in contention. Now, Clemson didn't beat South Carolina either one of those 2 seasons, so they entered the bowl game with a second loss. But again, you've been right there. This consistency isn't just a little 5 or 6 year trend. It's almost a decade trend at this point. And the conversations about how important every game are have led you down this path towards success. Success of this nature, in my opinion. We had a quick break. We bounce back right after this.
Live from the $1,500 instant rebate AAA Heating and Air Weather Center.
Tonight, the skies stay clear. The lows dip to around 60. Tomorrow, sunny skies and warm. Highs mid-80s. For Channel 25 ABC Columbia, I'm Chief Meteorologist John Farley.
This report is sponsored by attorney Bill Green and the Green Team.
If you're in a wreck, you have enough to deal with these days. Call the Bill Green Law Firm. We're here to help.
2821 Millwood Avenue, Columbia, South Carolina.
Always think green when you collide. Call 771-2455.
Not on my watch, our military service members say, as they volunteer to serve. Not on my watch, they say, as they leave their families behind to keep the rest of ours safe. As they move out, stand firm, and take fire. So not on our watch, we say, to the severely ill or injured veterans who can't get the care they deserve, the therapists they need to walk again, the treatment they need to talk again, the lifetime of day-to-day help they need to live full and independent lives. When there's no more government funding, or a nursing home seems like the only option, or everyone says there's no hope for recovery, we won't leave one warrior behind. Not on our watch. Find out how you can do your part at findwwp.org.
They'll challenge your authority. They'll try to break your will. They'll push you to the edge of your sanity. Because that's what kids do. But this car is your territory, not theirs. Defend it. Who makes the payments? Who cleans it? Who drives it? You do. That's who. And in here, your word is law. So when you say you won't move until everyone's buckled up, you won't budge an inch. Until you hear that click. Never give up until they buckle up. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council. For more information, visit safercar.gov/kidsbuckleup.
Of course my kid's in the right car seat. Well, I think he is.
Yeah, my kid's in a booster seat. He was ready to move up. He is ready, right?
The car seat looks like the right size.
There are probably rules on when to move up to a booster seat, aren't there?
Rear facing, forward facing. I think I have it right.
Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Are your children in the right car seat for their age and size? Don't think you know. Know you know. Go to safercar.gov/the-right-seat.
I know my child's in the right car seat, or else I wouldn't get in the driver's seat.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Sensory sensitivity, repetitious behavior, lack of eye contact. You can see signs of autism in children as young as 18 months. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
It's sports radio done only the way Fox can do it.
Always something to talk about. There's always controversy.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio 1400.
It is the show that shakes the Southland Clemson Sports Talk. If you're watching, like, subscribe. If you're listening while you're traveling around, tell all your friends and neighbors. Tell all your Tiger fans in the area about the show. We're here for you each and every day. 2 powerful hours full of the show that shakes the Southland. Full website, ClemsonSportsTalk.com, if that's tough to remember. ClemsonRadio.com will get you there as well. So, college game day coming to Tiger Town this weekend. Miami and Clemson, a matchup of top 10 teams. The Hurricanes ranked number 7, Clemson ranked number 1. Look, Manny Diaz a year ago, one season ago, I told you, and you can go back. That's the beauty of the podcast. You can go catch it. I thought in his role at Miami, the buy-in that I think he had from that team during his time as the defensive coordinator, I under Mark Richt, I really felt like when Mark Richt left and Manny Diaz was gone and players were, it was all this, all these, it just had some bad vibes. And this was not Manny Diaz's fault, but it felt like when he left that the players were, what's the word I'm looking for? Unsettled, especially on the defensive side of the ball. He took that job at Temple for like a hot second and then returned to Miami. He was gone, 17 days, just looking it up to see how long he was there. He took the job on December the 13th and returned back to take over in Miami just as soon as Mark Richt announced he was leaving. I know there was some unsettling of the players, and not from Manny Diaz's sake. That was about how much they liked him. And he's a young guy, and he came back, and he brought this exuberance about him. He's just 46 years old. And I thought going into last season, I was looking at that team. Obviously their quarterback situation a year ago isn't what it is today with Derek King there at quarterback, but I thought, man, that's a team to keep your eyeballs on. And they had a down year. They finished under 500. They finished 4-4 in conference. And to me, that left me feeling pretty unsettled about this group. If we were to go through the pecking order of the Atlantic Coast Conference, minus Notre Dame, and we start talking about recruiting rankings and the type players that these schools land, Miami pretty quickly is going to come up in that conversation. Whether it's third or fourth, fifth, maybe at worst, in the traditional ACC in most seasons recruiting. And here was this young coach, good-looking guy, fits that billing. His father was the mayor. I've told you these stories before about Manny Diaz, and it kind of felt like he was what the U's been missing. And then last season happened, and honestly, you kind of begin to wonder, okay, could he be in over his head? Is it too soon to observe, to take that observation? And so coming into this year, when asked outside of Notre Dame, who should we keep your eyes on? Who should we focus on? I kept steady with Miami, and I put a lot of that onus on a guy like Derek King at quarterback because of his versatility. And I think what we have seen is that, yes, this is a better Miami ball club than it was a year ago. I might make the argument, I don't have I bet I got a folder somewhere with these, predictions or projections in there from what I would have said about Miami a year ago. I mean, eyeballing their schedule one season ago, I probably would have had them losing the opener if my memory serves me correctly. I would have had them losing their opener. 3-1, maybe 4-1, 5-1, 6. I probably would have had them at around 9-3, somewhere in that range, just right off of the hoof a year ago. I mean, if I went back and grabbed my notes, I probably had them right in that that ball club. That I would have never thought they were going to lose to Florida International, lose at Duke, or lose to Louisiana Tech. None of that. The bowl game, none of that. So I took this year with some bated breath. But I still, looking up and down Clemson's schedule, I still thought, okay, I think they're going to be the challenge. I really didn't think Florida State was going to be the challenger. I thought Miami would be. And through their first 3 games, I think they've at least presented themselves as a challenge for Clemson. And this past game against Virginia, from the Tigers' standpoint, I think was a big deal. Because you get, it's sort of like refreshing mouthwash. You're kind of awake. I don't think Clemson's coming into this game this weekend with 19,000 fans in attendance, and they're not going to come in flat. They're not going to come in overconfident. They're not going to overlook Miami. I mean, they're going to be squarely locked in. They've got a number 7 beside their name. It's a huge matchup, especially when you consider the Atlantic Coast Conference rules this year with the single division. I mean, it's a monster game. You don't want this early in the season to slip down the notch on getting into that ACC championship, especially the fact that it comes down to winning percentage, which could mean if there's a tiebreaker along the way and you've got one loss, it might come down to if you get in all your games. 8-1 beats 7-1 when it comes to getting in the ACC championship this year. So that's the other consideration you got to give when you're talking about what Clemson's got to do this weekend and moving forward in the Atlantic Coast Conference. But I really think that this past weekend woke the Tigers up a little bit, and they'll be ready for the Miami Hurricanes on Saturday. I mentioned that game day's coming back. You can get your sign ready for game day. We'll give you some updates on that front when we return here on the show that shakes the Southland.
This is Joe Troman from the band Fall Out Boy. The first time I voted was in 2008. I unfortunately didn't get to go to the polls because I was traveling with the band, so I had to do mail-in. But still, I mean, felt very important. I mean, we're in a very divided time, very heated. I think people will say that their vote doesn't matter. Do it, and it does matter on so many levels.
iHeartRadio's Why I'm Voting countdown to Election Day. Your vote is your voice. Now, why are you voting? Well, we all have a reason. You know voting is important, but having the passion to make a real difference, that's just plain sexy. So check out the new podcast from iHeartRadio and Axe called Why I'm Voting, where you'll hear more reasons to vote. Because today, more than ever, why you're voting matters. iHeartRadio's Why I'm Voting countdown to Election Day. Your vote is your voice.
Group training is a fun, accountable way to get in shape. I'm Coach Stewart of Dynamic Health and Fitness. Come train with one of our special groups today. We will focus on giving you the support you need to get in shape. We use the Dynamic Mob, featuring intervals of cardio, functional training, and strength training to change your lifestyle to make you healthy. Get started today at any of our locations in Lexington or West Columbia, or call 803-408-4060 or online at dynamichealthclub.com.
Hey golfers, have you been to the golf capital of the world yet? Myrtle Beach Golf offers a variety of custom packages featuring nearly 80 courses. Golfers have the option to create the exact experience they're looking for. Plus, Myrtle Beach Golf provides top-notch accommodations with over 15 resorts, all guaranteed to be a hole-in-one. Come join us for a short drive away in Myrtle Beach for your best golf trip by par. Book now at myrtlebeachgolf.com.
iHeartRadio is the #1 choice for music, radio, and podcasts, all in one. No one makes it easier to hear everything you love in one free app.
I got podcasts, my music, and my radio stations all together.
You can download podcasts right to your phone. Every time I finish a podcast, there's this recommendation ready for me with another one.
I love this app because it's all in one place.
If you're not one of the tens of millions who have the app, download iHeartRadio for free today and start listening.
iHeartRadio.
No word in the English language is less convincing than probably.
Are you sure we should get matching tattoos on our first date?
Sure. We'll probably stay together.
Probably? It's been 23 minutes since I ate. I can probably swim.
You should wait 30 minutes.
Okay, now tell me what to do. Cannonball! Cramp! Oh, I have a cramp.
I can probably hit the green from here.
Probably.
Can I get a mulligan?
Ready to go?
Hey, are you sure you're okay to drive?
Yeah, I'm pretty sober.
Yeah, I'm probably okay.
Probably okay isn't okay, especially when it comes to drinking and driving. If you're drinking, call a cab, a car, or a friend. Buzzed driving
is drunk driving. A message brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad
For
Council.
victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique, but you are not alone. MAD is here to help. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org. That's MADD.org.
Fox Sports Radio 1400. Online at foxsportsradio1400.com. On your phone with the iHeartRadio app and on hundreds of devices like Alexa, Google Home, Xbox, and Sonos. An iHeartRadio station.
Clemson Sports Talk, Lawton Swan with you here on a Wednesday afternoon. Brett Ciancia of Pick Six Previews will join us coming up in just a little bit. Now, if you wanted to participate in game day, you can't do it like you normally would. As a matter of fact, I really love what game day's been doing with the digital people and the digital fans. I'm not going to lie, digital's not that bad. Not that bad. But you can submit your signs for game day. That'll be on this Saturday in Clemson. Fans can drop off their signs beginning Thursday. That's tomorrow between 12 and 5 p.m. And then Friday between 9 and 5 p.m. at the IPTE Center located on 100 Avenue of Champions Boulevard in Clemson. And the Tigers will maintain full discretion on what signs they're going to put up. Now, I don't know what sign. I'll tell you what, if you're watching the show, what sign would you put up? We'd love to hear from you on that front. Ant Pruitt says the best daggum voice out there on the airwaves. Thank you, Ant. Man, Ant does an awesome job. Ant, I'm secretly jealous of what you do. And I'll tell you, if Leo Laporte needs another show, as long as I can keep doing this show, maybe it's a show about school technology or something that fits my, right in my wheelhouse. I got you. Let me know. Edward says, quick response. You think we win? Last week, in my opinion, was a sluggish win. Edward, are you asking me if you think Clemson will win this game this weekend? I'm gonna need a point of clarification. I mean, the answer is yes. Yes, I think Clemson's going to win this game this weekend. I think that any concerns that you have about this team at this point, Roddy Jones did mention speed on Clemson's defense. I think that the biggest concern of all is the lack of fans. Honestly. I know that's it's a weird concern to have. But through these first few weeks of the season, Edward, and he clarifies, yes, that's what he wants to know for our radio listeners. That's what he wants to know. Do I think Clemson's going to win this game? Yes, I do think Clemson wins this game this weekend. Woo! Thanks. But I think the biggest issue for me comes down to a lack of fans. See, I don't think Clemson's going to overlook Miami. I know the Tigers are going to be locked in. What I have trouble pushing myself through is the if Clemson's down by 10 in the third quarter, midway. Now, look, they may not be. They may be up 10. They may be up 20 midway through the third quarter. But if you're down 10 and you've got this pressure that's mounting because you're the number one team in the country, you've got incredible expectations. You're in an Atlantic Coast Conference where it is the top two teams that get to play for the ACC title. Those scenarios, as you sit here today, aren't as magnified as they will be when there's 20 minutes left in that ball game. And in a usual environment of 85,000 Tiger fans inside Death Valley, In that environment, usually down 10 third quarter, there's this wave of momentum that's created by the fan base. You know what I'm talking about. The players run out after the TV timeout. Pretty much every fan stands up. It's the re-energizing and the reinvigoration that takes place inside the stadium to try to give the team that juice that they need to finish the game. That does not exist with 20,000 fans at the ball game. And I don't care if we start to look at 80,000 and say, well, there's a percentage, Swanee, that don't make a whole lot of cheering anyway. I take them out. Now we're probably, 70,000 or 75? There's probably 5,000 or 10,000 people there that don't do much noise making. It's not half. And so we quickly get down to, now I will say this, the people that are there are passionate fans. I think the percentage of people that don't make noise that are going to these games at this point, slim to none. I mean, these are the loud, rowdiest Tigers, I hope. I don't know that. I hope. And so I think to push that wave of momentum at that point is the most difficult task Clemson can face this weekend. In all honesty, I think they're the better team. I think defensively, people have forgotten that, the Tigers haven't had Xavier Thomas. The Tigers haven't had Tyler Davis. The Tigers haven't had Justin Foster. Foster, I believe, still out. And so, and I don't know. I can't remember if Coach Swinney mentioned Xavier Thomas this week or not. I'd have to go back and double check. But there is, I think, something to be said for the fact that there's a lack of fans. The further that game goes in, the closer it is, I believe it begins to favor Miami. I don't tend to believe that if this was Clemson and Miami and 80,000 plus fans in attendance. I think that this game would pretty much, the wave would favor Clemson the entire way. I think there's a point in the second half, if Miami is close or leading, that the amount of fans in that stadium becomes an issue for me. And I like some people go, Swati, what are you talking about? Did you watch Oklahoma? Have you seen LSU? Did you see Kansas State? Like it's a little bit like the coronavirus. It's everywhere. The lack of fans and their ability to create this environment that we're so accustomed to in this sport, it kind of makes a hollowness to it all. Hour 2, Brett Ciancia, Pick 6 previews next.
Clemson Sports Talk with Lawton Swan on Columbia's home for sports, Fox Sports Radio 1400. Now, Columbia's most dependable traffic, sponsored by Pope Davis Tire and Automotive, home of the best tire prices in Columbia, guaranteed. Fox Sports Radio 1400 traffic.
A wreck this afternoon on I-20 eastbound near the Broad River Road exit as traffic backed up about a half mile. Other tie-ups, McNulty and Boney, and hard scrabble at Elders Pond. The 103.5 FM WVOC traffic tip line is 343-1055.
This report is sponsored by Prisma Health. At Prisma Health, they are making healthcare exceptional for everyone across the Midlands and upstate. With more access to care, research innovations, and patient education, they're committed to helping you be your healthiest you. Learn more at prismahealth.org/inspired.
Paid non-attorney spokesperson. Attention all women who have been diagnosed with ovarian cancer. Johnson & Johnson's baby powder and shower-to-shower talcum products have been linked to ovarian cancer. In February and May 2016, Johnson & Johnson was ordered to pay $72 million and $55 million by 2 juries to 2 women who contracted ovarian cancer after years of using talcum baby powder products. If you or a family member has been diagnosed with ovarian cancer and used talcum powder prior to the diagnosis, call Talcum Powder Help Now today at 800-833-0112. You may be entitled to substantial compensation. The consultation is free and you'll pay nothing unless there is a recovery in your favor. Don't fight this alone. If you or a loved one used talcum baby powder-based products before being diagnosed or died from ovarian cancer, call Talcum Powder Help Now at 800-833-0112. 800-833-0112. 800-833-0112.
Paid for by Bar Justice.
Let me tell you who I trust to protect my home and my family. Modern Exterminating. Hey, it's Lawton Swan, and when you need top quality service from a team that knows what bugs you, call Modern Exterminating. 765-2315. They're locally owned and offer a full complement of pest elimination services, including complete pest control, termite plans, moisture control, and more. Check out Modern Exterminating online at pestfreesc.com or give them a call today. 765-2315. Modern Exterminating. They know what bugs you.
Hi, I'm Alicia Kaufman Quinton. My daddy, Billy Kaufman, opened Kaufman's Meat Plant at our present location in 1955. My family still works hard every day to ensure fresh quality cuts of beef, pork, and poultry. How about a tasty T-bone, ribeye, or New York strip steak? But to order at Kaufman's Meat and Place. Just look for the signs near the intersection of US 1 and I-20 in Lexington. Call us at 356-0076 to place your order. Kaufman's Meat and Place, when you want the very best your money can buy.
When it comes to driving change, there's no action as powerful as casting a vote. So Levi's wants to help get as many people as possible registered and ready to vote this fall. Text Levi's to 788-683 for key dates, election reminders, and voters info. And don't miss the new podcast from iHeartRadio and Levi's called Why I'm Voting, where you'll hear more reasons to vote. iHeartRadio's Why I'm Voting, countdown to Election Day. Your vote is your voice.
Unexpected reactions to smart financial decisions brought to you by feedthepig.org.
Well, I finally did it. I opened a 401k.
So you're giving up? Just like that?
Giving up on what?
I'm getting an inheritance from a distant relative.
Don't you think if there were a billionaire in the family, we'd know about it by now?
Listen to me. We are one phone call away from riding horses on our own private polo grounds. One call from christening yachts, having a butler, using summer as a verb.
How do you figure?
Look, everyone's got a rich uncle somewhere. It's statistics. So the best thing you can do is just prepare for the inevitable.
Right, which is why I thought maybe it would be smart to take control of my finances. You know, start using a budget, get out of debt, set some retirement goals.
Budgets? Debt? You watch your mouth. Retirement shouldn't be a goal for us. It should be a way of life.
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Fox Sports Radio 1400, WCOS Columbia, an iHeart radio station.
It's time for Clemson Sports Talk with Lawton Swan.
Ready, set! Just call me Swanee.
Tiger style. Tiger style.
It is hour number 2. That's drive time right here on the show that shakes the Southland. Clemson Sports Talk. Brett Ciancia, Pick 6 previews coming up here on the program. Top of the hour, number 2. Thank you for being a part of the program. Podcast editions available on the website, ClemsonSportsTalk.com. LeBron James is on a Wheaties box for the first time. How is that a thing? Not that LeBron James is on a Wheaties box. I mean, if Swanee's on a Wheaties box, you might go, how is that a thing? But LeBron James, this is his first time being on a Wheaties box? I don't understand. When I was a kid, Wheaties was the place to be for people that were putting up rings. LeBron James looks like the Los Angeles Lakers will win the NBA title. They're a game away from doing it. LeBron James will get his 4th NBA title, and everybody that hates my Lakers will just have to keep hating, because I think LBJ and the Lakers are going to do it. Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Brett Ciancia. 3 names that go together. I'm telling you. He joins us. Pick 6 previews. That's his website. That's his preseason magazine. Brett, what's up, big guy? How you doing?
Hey, Lawton, doing great. Excited for another big weekend here. Just feels like fall's back with the SEC rolling and a couple leagues coming at the end of the month, so I'm pretty pumped.
Okay, so big matchup in the Atlantic Coast Conference this weekend with Clemson and Miami, and we will certainly get to that one in just a few minutes. But I think the other one right now that's really got my eyeballs, I talked with Roddy Jones from the ACC Network a little bit earlier. I'm interested to see this North Carolina-Virginia Tech game this weekend for a couple of reasons, and maybe most notably after what we saw from North Carolina this past weekend, just surviving against Boston College, Brett, and it's weird to see Boston College's offense doing the things that it was doing. But I just think, you know what, North Carolina's a top 8 team, but I don't think they've looked like that.
Yeah, I think UNC, they've had a couple misleading box scores. I mean, when you look at their yards per play metrics, they're pretty efficient. Actually, the defense has been a pleasant surprise. I was coming in, I thought it'd be, a crazy explosive offense that might get themselves into some shootouts, but the defense has really held their own. In fact, I think they're number 1 in yards per play in the country defensively. Now, the offense needs to cut back on some turnovers. Turnover last week deep in their end led to a quick BC touchdown. And then there were some turnovers in the first quarter of the Syracuse game, their opener. But it's kind of bizarre. We saw them on opening day and then waited 3 weeks to see UNC again. So
True.
I think now that they're getting back into a routine, I think that they'll start to click a bit more offensively.
How frustrating do you think, Britt, that's been for these teams to have some weeks? I mean, we've seen Houston and what they're going through now. It's absurd, but just across the board in college football, I mean, how frustrating is this for so many teams, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's got to be tough. It's hard to really get momentum going week to week and get into a routine when you have a lot of bye weeks or cancellations, and it's no one's fault. It's just the nature of the beast here in 2020. So I think as you see teams getting back into the regular routine, I think you'll see a better product of what they want to do on both sides of the ball, scheme-wise, personnel-wise. Virginia Tech was in the same boat. In fact, they've had a lot worse than UNC. UNC only had bye weeks. Virginia Tech, they've been playing without 23 players. They came out in their opener 2 weeks ago without 23, and Saturday they were down 21 guys. And, it's not just roster guys, even though that would be a huge blow anyway. It's they have their starting quarterback out, Hendon Hooker, who Justin Fuente was really trying to build this offense around and had a really great turning point mid-season last year when he went to Hooker first team. So they're battling through it. Braxton Burmeister's looked great as the backup, now starter. Even Quincy Patterson got some time and a rushing touchdown. So, and really with Virginia Tech, the transfer running backs have been incredible. Khalil Herbert in from Kansas, and the transfer in from Rutgers. So a lot of playmakers, big offensive line. I'm excited for this one, and you wonder if they're going to start to get their reinforcements back. Some of these guys that have been quarantined, if they start getting healthy and getting back and adding depth, this could be a dangerous team.
He is on Twitter at Pick6Previews, Brett Ciancia. And Brett, so I was just talking before the break to Clemson Tiger fans about this matchup with Miami, and somebody asked me what my thoughts on it, and I'll tell you where my biggest concern is based on what I've seen across the board in college football. It's if Clemson is down in the third quarter, mid to late third quarter, and there's no atmosphere in Death Valley because of the fans not being able to sort of create that wave of momentum. Whether we're talking about what happened to LSU a couple of weekends ago against Mississippi State, what happened to maybe Mississippi State against Arkansas, what's happened to Oklahoma at home, what's happened to Kansas State at home. I think from coast to coast in games that we're seeing played right now, the most disconcerting thing for me about a season so far is being a favorite, so to speak, at home, but not having the atmosphere there to help you if you're in trouble.
Yeah, so a couple things. I think that, the home field advantage has definitely been neutralized across the country, some worse than others. Some states and regions still have zero fans, like BYU is locked out, some of the Northeast, but down south you're starting to see it open up a bit more. But yeah, I think it's not your usual, obviously, it's not your usual sellout and late game buzz. But when you reference those other teams, they have a little bit in common, those three you said. They all have young quarterbacks. Oklahoma starting a redshirt freshman, Rattler. Who else did you say?
Mississippi State, I guess, has.
Well,
LSU, Miles Brennan,
and
right? Yeah,
and Miles Brennan here, first-time starter at LSU, and those are young rosters too. LSU had 5 starters back from their title team out of 22. So look for a young and inexperienced team with a young quarterback to maybe, fall asleep or whatever you want to call it, sleepwalking at home in a quiet game. But I think with Clemson here, that's a completely different story because you have so much veteran leadership. You have a staff that's been together for pretty much a decade now. Trevor Lawrence, third-year starter, Travis Etienne, fourth-year starter, a ton of experience, and they played on the biggest stage. So I don't think that Clemson falls into a trap that a younger LSU or a new staff, Mississippi State, or a younger quarterback, Rattler, Oklahoma, falls into.
Brett Ciancia, pick6previews.com. Check out his work right now over on his website. And Brett, I want to kind of go at this to another way. Because of the staggered start to the season, we haven't seen everybody. The Big Ten teams are back being ranked, and people are anxious to see what that league brings to the table. But a couple of weeks in from the SEC, we've seen the ACC for a few more weeks. Who's sort of standing out right now as a team that you would go, okay, if things go their way, COVID-19 wise, this, that, and the other, I feel pretty good about what I've seen from Ball Club X or Y.
Yeah, so Clemson's done what they're supposed to do for sure with the big test coming Saturday. A couple teams that have played better than I expected are Alabama and Georgia, and that could be a boring answer, but because most had them in the playoff anyway. But if you remember in my preseason preview book, I actually had Florida coming out of the SEC. So now 3 weeks in, I know it's a short sample size. Florida's offense has looked great. Their defense is giving up a ton of yards and a ton of chunk plays. So the more complete teams to me so far out of the SEC look to be Georgia, now that their offense is waking up, and Alabama with these playmakers. I watched the A&M Alabama tape. Oh, my gosh, Alabama's receivers again. They're just NFLers running up and down the field. Waddle, what's his name, Mechie, the new kid, and Devontae Smith. They're just on their own new level here of speed. And now Mac Jones is airing it out. So
he looked
I think
confident.
that those two have taken a
Mac
step.
Jones looked extremely confident. I love that you went there because I thought he looked very confident, much more so than I expected.
Oh, yep. Yeah, for sure. And we saw about half a season for him last year when Tua went down to injury. And what it was a lot of horizontal passing, a lot of quick, passes to the sidelines or maybe slants over the middle, short stuff, and letting the All-American receivers take off. Now, that definitely works, but I was waiting to see some of the vertical game. And here we are Saturday against A&M, and time after time he hit an 85-yarder, a 70-yarder. I mean, just bombs away, and these receivers are running under it and getting past the secondary. So, they've caught my eye now as a complete team, and I'd put them into the playoff tier up from where I had them in the preseason at number 5.
Last season, the Miami Hurricanes in year 1 with Manny Diaz, I had high hopes for them. They finished under 500. They get Derek King there at quarterback. Things seem to be clicking, but perhaps their running back Cameron Harris, who people may not know a ton about just yet, has been a real bright spot for them on offense this season. 38 attempts, 311 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Brett, have you had a chance to take a look at Cameron Harris and what he brings to this Miami offense in terms of the 2020 campaign?
Yeah, I've watched 2 of their games of Miami, and what it is really, they're taking care of the ball. This is something that it's been a quarterback carousel there for years. Finally, Derek King is in here. He's taking care of the ball. I think it's 7 touchdowns, no picks through the air. That's something unheard of for Miami recently. So, and then also on the ground. I mean, he brings an element of creativity and elusiveness in the pocket where it's hard to get a finger on him. He's spinning out of would-be sacks and then extending plays for positive yards. So, and then with Cameron Harris, he's just he fits in well into this power zone scheme that Rhett Lashley installed in year 1 here. Averaging over 100 per game. It just fits. So, and I'm really excited about, and also can't believe how quickly he's installed this new system here. So, credit to Lashley and the staff, and then to Derek King, and also the offensive line for getting it together too, because that's really another issue they've had recently. Now that they're opening up running holes and lanes, they're looking like a complete team more than we've seen. But again, this is a measuring stick game for Miami. This kind of happens every 3 years. You see some of these fallen programs like a Miami or a Tennessee or a Nebraska where everything, they have an early ranking, top 10, and there's kind of a measurement test, and here we go. Actually, Tennessee has one, too, for that matter. So Miami and Tennessee are going to get tested, and we'll see really how far they've come.
Okay, I want to ask you, Brett, you mentioned Rhett Lashley. When I was talking with Roddy Jones a little bit earlier, we kind of touched on this a little bit, and you talked to coaches on staff, sometimes with, some anonymity and things that you get to publish in Pick Six previews. But as good as Clemson's been, Rhett Lashley was asked about Brent Venables and sign stealing, and Lashley said, look, that's a part of the game. You got to be better at it. If you can figure out somebody's signs, why not do it? When I asked Roddy Jones about it, I wouldn't say he ducked the question. I mean, he went after it, but he essentially said it exists, but people don't really talk about it. In your conversations with these coaches and these staffs across the country, I mean, do you ever talk about that aspect of the game and its value, or what, whether even some people might say it's not above, kind of above the board. Some people might say that it's cheating. Now, I think most coaches would say we just have to get better, like Lashley said. But I mean, what are your thoughts on potential sign stealing?
Yeah, so I guess I don't really I don't ask them explicitly about that. I'm more so trying to find out about their personnel, who they have coming back, incoming freshmen, transfer players, but then also the schemes they want to install, what kind of offense, what kind of defense they're running, any developments from last season, any injuries, because sometimes a season prior is kind of altered by a ton of injuries. So, if a certain secondary was all banged up, that would explain away some of those losses. But anyways, no, I haven't brought up sign stealing. It kind of reminds me of when you're facing an up-tempo team, you sometimes see players, fall to the ground out of nowhere, and some people say it's faking an injury, maybe they are cramps, that kind of thing. That kind of falls into the same category. I think it might just be part of the game. It's nothing I've ever talked explicitly about. It's something I know about, but who knows the extent of it, So it's just one of those things. But no, I'm very impressed with Lashley. And then speaking of Miami specifically, I was able to talk to Blake Baker, their defensive coordinator, in the preseason. He's kind of been Manny Diaz's right-hand man, because of course Diaz is a defensive guy, and they're very attacking, they're very aggressive on defense. So you'll see that Saturday. They're going to blitz the heck out of Clemson. Now they gamble, so for every sack they get, and it's a great pass rush, they might be more susceptible to the big play. So it's a risk reward. They've been pretty good defensively the last couple of years, and we'll see how they hold up.
Pick6previews.com, on Twitter at Pick6previews. Brett, we still got a couple of minutes, and I do want to get to this Clemson-Miami game a little bit further with you, but tell Tiger fans and any Gamecocks or Hurricanes peeking over the fence with us today how they can get their hands on your magazine.
Yeah, thanks. It's at Pick6previews on Twitter, and that's daily content there, on my stats, my analytics, highlights, film study, that kind of thing. But my preseason book is pick6previews.com. It's all 65 Power 5 teams. It's a one-man show here. And after my 2019 edition, I was invited to become a Heisman voter. So, I try and go real in-depth, more than you see from a lot of the national guys, and really dig into the details, both numbers but also X's and O's, because I think it's important to have that balance. So, pick6previews.com.
Yeah, I tell you, I think for Clemson Tiger fans, Brett, they kind of know what you've thought about them all season. When I was asked what I thought of Miami by multiple outlets that I was on visiting this year to talk about the Tigers in the league, I said, look, I think outside of Notre Dame, they have a chance to be the biggest threat to Clemson because of King at quarterback. Well, here we are. I mean, have they become, outside of Notre Dame, the biggest threat to Clemson, or is it possible? Could they be the biggest threat to Clemson in the Atlantic Coast Conference based on what you've seen so far?
Well, I think they're in that pool of teams. I think you'd still consider UNC a serious threat. I think you'd still consider Notre Dame, just given their track record the last couple of years. Now, when you look at Miami, it's important to then look at some of these games in context where, yeah, they're 3-0. They beat up on Florida State and Louisville. But when you look at those two opponents, Florida State, they were losing to an FCS team for most of the game Saturday against Jacksonville State. That's a program in disarray. And, I mean, of course, it was an impressive win, but I think you start to lose some luster when you see how bad Florida State is. And then same with Louisville. Of course, that was the first ranked matchup of the season. It was a great primetime win. The offense looked great. But when you look at Louisville, they went and lost to Pitt the next week. So there are already a couple losses there. So I think Miami, it's been a hot start, but I want to see them prove it, see how they hold up against Clemson. But I think the biggest threat is still Notre Dame and UNC.
Okay, well, I guess that would make Tiger fans feel a little bit better about this top 7 matchup, the highest rated matchup in the history of the ACC. At least it tied that. And again, I think just the 17th matchup of top 25 teams in the league's history. But All right, Brett. So real quick, if going into the fourth quarter, this thing is still a ball game and Miami's challenging Clemson, what's happened for the Tigers? What's kind of gone bad?
Oh, well, I think you've maybe let Derek King get loose. I mean, if it's a close game, then that means that King is really having a great game. If you guys go to man coverage, he's scrambling and finding no linebackers at that middle tier. If you zone up, he's picking it apart. So maybe some of that zone read and up tempo is getting to Clemson, because one thing I was considering was Clemson hasn't really played a full game. I guess UVA was close, but a lot of these games they've been blowing out teams, and of course that's a good thing. But when you think about it, Miami's going to want to go up tempo. They're going to be sprinting to the offensive line or to the line of scrimmage every snap, and I just wonder if that starts to wear down on defense, and it could be their longest time on the field here. I don't think it'll get to that. I'm just trying to think devil's advocate, worst case scenario. To give you probably the most boring answer possible for a radio show, my numbers have it at 14.5. Clemson win by 14.5 points, which I think is identical to the Vegas spread within a half point there. So, sometimes I look for if my numbers are way off from what the public thinks, but here we are lined up. So I think Clemson gets it done by 2 scores, maybe 17 points, and really flexes their muscle here.
Well, the final thing, we only have about a minute. One thing I will say, I think that all the bravado and everything that Miami carries because of who that program has been has come back to haunt them a couple of times when they played Clemson lately, 38-3 in the ACC championship in 2017 and then 58-0 back in 2015. I don't know that we'll see a number like that, Brett, but I do think that it's a team that has so much swagger that when they get punched in the mouth, I think sometimes they struggle to respond. We got about a minute. Would you agree with that statement at this point?
Yeah, I agree. When you look at their recent history, they have definitely the speed at the skill positions, but you always wonder. I mentioned that offensive line had been a liability in years past. Maybe it's improved. We'll see. When they play against some of these strong lines on defensive line and offensive line, think of their series with Wisconsin. Those 2 bowl games were both beatdowns. They really got mauled in both of those. Clemson, like you said, has had their way. So, yeah, this will be a test. I really like Clemson's defensive line against Miami's O-line. It's been a liability for years, again. So until I see it, I still think that's a huge advantage for Clemson, and they should be all over King in the backfield.
On Twitter, at Pick Six Previews. Brett, man, have a great week. Enjoy the games.
Thanks. Enjoy.
There he is, man. Awesome work from Brett Ciancia, Pick Six Previews here on the show that shakes the Southland. Again, we'll talk about that. Punching Miami in the face. Can Clemson do it? Stay with us.
Here's your chance to win $1,000. Text the nationwide keyword cash to 200-200. You'll get a confirmation text and info. Standard data and message rates apply in this nationwide contest. That's cash to 200-200.
Now, Columbia's most dependable traffic, sponsored by Pope Davis Tire and Automotive, home of the best tire prices in Columbia, guaranteed. Fox Sports Radio 1400 traffic.
Reports of an accident on Pin Oak Drive at 3 Oaks. Also a wreck I-20 westbound at the Broad River Road exit. I'm Rob Sanders. You can reach out to me on the 103.5 FM WVOC traffic tip line 343-1055.
This report is sponsored by Attorney Bill Green and the Green Team.
If you're in a wreck, you have enough to deal with these days. Call the Bill Green Law Firm. We're here to help.
Always think green when you collide. Call 771-2455. Here we go.
2821 Millwood Avenue, Columbia, South Carolina.
Chris Domine is a husband and a father. Chris is an athlete. Chris is even an Iron Man. But 10 years ago, Chris was facing a very different story because his kidneys were failing.
Basically, the doctor said, if you don't get a kidney transplant and if you don't do dialysis, you are going to die.
Fortunately, Chris received a second chance at life, made possible by an organ donor.
You know, your well-being changes from loss of hope to better times ahead.
More than 100 million people in America are registered organ, eye, and tissue donors. People of every age and ethnicity, because they believe it's the right thing to do. Imagine what you can make possible by leaving behind the gift of life. Learn more and sign up as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. Go to organdonor.gov. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
Our military service members volunteer to protect us in the most dangerous places around the world. They step up. And when they are severely ill or injured, returning to their families is only the beginning of their long road home. Beyond all the hospitals and doctors and surgeries they need just to survive, they also deserve whatever they need to truly live. All the in-home care and day-to-day help they need to live independently, on their own terms. Wounded Warrior Project long-term support programs are established to provide these brave men and women whatever they need to continue their fight for independence, at no cost, for life. So many of them need us, and it's time for a grateful nation to step up. Find out how you can do your part at findwwp.org.
Dave, what are you doing?
Just sending a gift to Dave 2037.
Who?
Me in the future. I save a little money from every paycheck as a gift to Dave 2037, so he can spend it on things like anti-gravity boots or a hologram Doberman, something cool like that. I think Dave 2037 deserves it. He worked hard. What are you getting Steve 2037?
I guess I was thinking Steve 2037 would just fend for himself.
Well, all right, but don't expect to be borrowing my anti-gravity boots.
You want to have money in your future? You got to start saving now. Putting some money from every paycheck into a savings account or contributing to your 401k can make a big difference later. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free ideas and easy ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
Hey, let's just hope Steve 2037 doesn't get his hands on a cool time machine, because he is going to come back here and knock some sense into you.
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
Looking for South Carolina's favorite country? You'll find it at 97.5 WCOS.
It is the show that shakes the Southland. Lawton Swan. Like, share, subscribe. Tell your friends, neighbors, and your friends' neighbors. Come be a part of the show. So, Brett Ciancia Pick Six previews. He thinks it's going to be, he thinks Clemson's going to beat Miami by 14.5, 17 points, something like that. Miami fans tuning into the show not happy about that.
Don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
But it's kind of like a boxing match. I mean, it really is. And look, thank goodness Rocky IV. Thank goodness Rocky IV was not a real movie. If you haven't seen it, spoiler alert, Apollo dies. Well, he doesn't die. He gets killed by the Russian Ivan Drago. Boy, I'm really spoiling this movie for some people. Not even the great James Brown, born in Barnwell County, living in America, could save Apollo Creed in Rocky IV. That's kind of how I see Miami. Right? Bravado, supreme confidence, maybe a bit arrogant, and Clemson's like Ivan Drago. Clemson's become a machine. And so in order to take Clemson out, and I know you guys are like, couldn't Clemson have been Rocky? No, because in Rocky's getting, Rocky IV, he's getting beaten pillar to post. Clemson's been more Ivan Drago than Rocky Balboa recently. They're just a solid machine. They do what they do. They come in, they throw a knockout punch, and if you're a guy or a team like Miami, and you're not accustomed to being in that, so what happens is, and you saw this in that 38-3 ACC championship game, Miami came into that game with boatloads of confidence, and they had all season long, they had, created the turnover chain, and they forced turnovers left and right, and, honestly, they weren't a bad team. They weren't a bad team at all. They came into that game ranked, what, number 7? Same as they are in this game. Matter of fact, the rankings were the same. Clemson was number 1. They were number 7. Or were they ranked 13th coming into that ball game? I'm trying to look and see. It's the only thing about retrospective looks at things. Man. Can't tell. Yeah, Clemson was number 1 at the time. Miami was number 7. The Tigers finished 4th that year, so yes. So, everybody thought, Miami coming into that game was going to challenge Clemson. Everybody thought Miami coming into that game was going to finally be the team that stood toe-to-toe against the Tigers. And really, prior to the week before that, you might remember, they were undefeated. And they lost 24-14 at Pitt before that ACC championship game, or they would have been undefeated coming in. They were competing for an ACC, for a berth in the college football playoff. And Clemson just steamrolled them. Just beat them down. And there's a moment in that game back in 2017 where you just saw things begin to unravel because Miami that season, and even perhaps over the past 20 years or so, can never quite get accustomed to that taking place. They're not what they were. But in trying to rise back to that level, that, I'm going to call it arrogance, you call it what you want, surfaces. And the U, which has gotten, 2 documentaries on ESPN, the U, all the guys, Warren Sapp, everybody, the U, Michael Irvin, everybody starts coming to the games. Here they come. They're going to get back to what they were. And they start to get a little, they come down. Living in America's playing. They're kissing their gloves. They're waving to the fans. They think, oh, this is it. And then standing across from them is this giant robotic machine like Clemson. And it's just a haymaker, left, haymaker right, and then boom. They're staggered. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to recover. And no matter how much they dance or prance or gloat or yell or celebrate, they don't have the answer. And I think that's the difference, honestly, in these two teams. Is that Clemson, I don't want to call them steady Eddie, but they're fairly focused on what they have to do. Miami's coming in hoping to knock off Clemson. I think Clemson expects to knock off Miami. And so when it's go time, I tend to lean towards Clemson in that almost robotic and programmed approach to things. Winning the day. Could they get beat? Yeah, sure. But Miami's going to have to come out and take over that game and really try to keep Clemson playing on their heels. Because if the Tigers are allowed to lean in and lean forward and throw punches, it's going to be trouble. Lots and lots of trouble for the Hurricanes inside Death Valley, in my estimation.
Kirk Commercial Construction is a licensed general contractor in South Carolina. Since 2011, Chris Kirk, a Columbia native with 20 years of construction experience, has believed in meeting his customers' needs. Kirk Commercial Construction is capable of performing any retail or office expansion, new construction, metal building, or commercial renovation work. In addition to Kirk's commercial construction projects, their service division can assist you with commercial and maintenance tasks. If you need it done right, call 803-250-2495 or KirkCommercialConstruction.com.
Basketball is back, and so is Hisense upgrade season. Bring home the game with the newest razor-sharp Hisense 4K ULED Android TVs, now with Quantum Dot Color and Dolby Atmos sound to bring an arena-level atmosphere right into your living room. With Android TV, listen to all things sports with stations like ESPN Radio on iHeartRadio and access to 700,000-plus movies, shows, and more. Upgrade your playoff experience with the fastest-growing TV brand in America, Hisense 4K ULED Android TVs. Visit hisense-usa.com to find a retailer near you.
This is Clay Travis. Here's what's trending from the iHeart Sports Network.
Presented by Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina.
The Buffalo Bills are 4-0. Say it slowly. And quarterback Josh Allen has become a real MVP candidate. The third-year quarterback is second in touchdown passes, second in passing yards, and has the fourth highest PFF passing grade at 90. He has stopped running and now is just using that howitzer of an arm of his. The Bills and Bills Mafia are back. I'm Chris Collinsworth.
They say defense wins championships. Defense protects your health, too. If you're a federal employee in South Carolina, active or retired, the Blue Cross and Blue Shield Service Benefit Plan packs a wallop. Learn more at fepblue.org. They've been standing beside federal employees since 1960.
In 1983, Diane Downs did something unthinkable to her children. She then showed up to her trial, pregnant.
Diane had gotten pregnant again. I don't think anyone in the press knew that yet.
Join host Melissa Moore as she helps that child, Becky Babcock, navigate her connection to a killer. iHeartRadio is #1 for podcasts, and it's easy to see why. Find Happy Face presents Two-Face on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just got invited to the prom. Do you A, meet her date?
I need to see your past date report cards, your driver's license, a list of references, and this hair sample.
B, help her pick out a dress.
Don't you just love the long sleeves and turtleneck on this pantsuit?
Ugh.
C, attend the prom undercover.
Mom, what are you doing here?
I'm not Mom, I'm Calvin, the new kid at school.
Or D, capture her big moment.
Let's take a photo of you two. I'm in the middle.
When it comes to parenting, there are no perfect answers. But that's okay, because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have a diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Did 2020 deliver a season-ending hit to your bank account? Keep listening here to get $1,000 in your hand.
Your chance to win 12 times daily on Fox Sports Radio 1400.
It is the show that shakes the Southland, Clemson Sports Talk. So the ACC Digital Network put out a video of the top 10 Atlantic Coast Conference matchups since 2000. By the way, if you are watching the show, share, like, subscribe, do all those things. I'm going to go over to Facebook. I'm going to share it one more time. As we got about 20 some odd minutes left in the program. Again, thank you for being a part of it. Brett Ciancia was on earlier also. It was always good to get a chance to catch up with Roddy Jones. Love what Roddy Jones brings to the table here on Wednesday afternoons. Don't forget, coming up later in the week, Tim Beret joins the program. We'll also have Clemson Tom and Tommy Bowden on the program. And, you know, Coach Bowden his father, Bobby, didn't mention this this week. I don't think we've gotten to it yet, but Bobby Bowden is currently battling COVID-19. So the 91-year-old coach, former head coach of the Florida State Seminoles. And, man, thoughts and prayers go out to him. I mean, he is a legend, a living legend in the sport. And speaking of Bobby Bowden, when you talk about these top 10 matchups in the ACC play, back in 2004, it was number 4 Florida State versus number 5 Miami, and Frank Gore of the Hurricanes saved the day for that crew. And kind of watching the highlights of that game, I got to tell you, I don't want to say the league is missing Florida State being Florida State or being the Seminoles, but there's something about that program being in the top and having the type players that they've had in the past. In Miami, too, watching that game, that makes you wish you could see more of that from those two programs. And I know those of you who are Tiger fans will say, what do you mean? I like where Clemson is right now. Yes, and the league's a lot better when those two teams are playing well. Back in 2015, it was number 10 North Carolina versus number 1 Clemson in the ACC championship game. And really what I remember about that game was North Carolina challenging Clemson throughout the ball game. The onside kick, Clemson wins at 45-37. But more so the fact that at that point, Clemson, for me, and I think for most of the people, had not become this Clemson team that you see today. It was still very much, there was a newness to it. Back in 2012, number 10 Clemson was on the road at number 4 Florida State. That was a game where, remember, Taj Boyd hit Nuke Hopkins on the deep ball. Clemson was up big at one point, I think maybe up 28-14, if my memory serves me correctly. And then Florida State ends up coming back and wins that game. I think, did that one end in overtime or not? 49-37. It must not have ended in overtime, but I do remember Florida State came steamrolling back in that ball game, and just a little bit of frustration because of Clemson jumping out, on them and having a lead and not being able to hold on. And one of those games that kind of goes the way of what I was saying earlier. That was back when Florida State was a little more of the Ivan Drago type, and I would say that Clemson was probably in that matchup a little more Rocky Balboa, a team that was not filled with that bravado that Miami has, like Apollo Creed. Man, we're having a lesson in Rocky IV here, but still a team that wasn't quite there. They were trying to be a contender. Back in 2007, number 2 Boston College took on number 8 Virginia Tech, and that was when the legend of Matty Ice sort of became a thing, I guess you would say, in college football, as Matt Ryan and Boston College knocked off Virginia Tech 14-10. Again, that was a number 2 ranked Boston College team. That tells you everything you need to know about Matt Ryan at BC and the job that he did during his tenure there. And, man, Clemson fans go back to that game against BC with Aaron Kelly's drop. Oh, man, that was one so painful. Tim Bray brought it up a few years ago. Back in 2016, Louisville and Lamar Jackson were number 3. Clemson was number 5. You add those two numbers up, 3 and 5, that's 8. That's what you got in Death Valley this weekend, 7-1, that's 8. The all-time best in terms of the best ranked teams playing in a game in ACC history. Jordan Leggett late in that ballgame with a big catch. He was the catalyst for Clemson that entire season for the Tigers. And just really, man, the play late by, was it Marcus Edmonds that made that tackle? Oh, my goodness. Clemson and Louisville for so many years had some great, great games in the Atlantic Coast Conference as they sort of joined the league. But, yeah, looking back on it, there have been some really, really good quality games played recently. A lot of those have featured your Clemson Tigers. But for the Atlantic Coast Conference to have a game of this magnitude this early in the season, when the Big Ten's not playing, when the Pac-12's not playing, when the Big 12's not playing, I mean, for the most part, it's really the ACC and the SEC. And I got to believe that from a recruiting standpoint, these games and these opportunities for the Atlantic Coast Conference teams are incredibly valuable. And so I think that over the next few weeks, before the Big Ten gets rocking and rolling, teams like Miami, teams like North Carolina, that have the stage, so to speak, to themselves, have a chance to impress. And so going back to my reaction on this Miami ball game against Clemson, I think Miami can actually win without winning. But I think it comes down to how they do things on Saturday in Death Valley. And what is the perception coming out? The perception coming out of this game cannot be 58-0 Al Golden. Cannot be 38-3 ACC championship game. It has to be, we might not quite be there, but we stood toe-to-toe with the Giant. It needs to be what Clemson fans felt coming out of the national championship game, perhaps, against Alabama back in 2015, where you walked out of there saying, I don't know if we'll ever get there again, but we proved on that stage that night that we deserve to be there. And that's really what I think Miami's got to do this weekend against Clemson. They got to prove that they deserve to be in the ring. Crazy Eyes says, Swanee, there's a hurricane a-coming for you. Y'all better be ready. Tigers will buckle up the old chin straps. Speaking of hurricanes, we'll give you an update on the weather conditions expected in Death Valley on Saturday night. Dabo Swinney saying yesterday, hurricanes everywhere. The Gulf Coast is on full alert. We'll give you an update on what's going on with Hurricane Delta when we get back. Stay with us.
When a community grows, its hospital should grow too. And that's just what we're doing at Lexington Medical Center. We recently launched the largest hospital expansion project in South Carolina history. Our new 10-story patient tower will help us take better care of patients, including the tiniest infants who need special attention. It will also make room for the growing number of patients who need surgery and intensive care. At Lexington Medical Center, our mission to serve our community never wavers. We're here when you need us today, and we'll be there when you need us tomorrow.
Many people never believe that they will need a lawyer to help them navigate our legal system. Then one day, you need just that. When you've been injured, the deck is stacked against you, and you need an advocate to stand up for your rights. William Alexander focuses his practice on assisting those who have been injured in car wrecks and other personal injuries, helping you get your life back on track. Call today for your case strategy, 803-571-0039, or visit them online, whalawoffice.com. The law office of William H. Alexander is licensed in South Carolina and Georgia. Principally located at 222 Main Street in Barnwell.
Hi, I'm Alicia Kaufman Quinton. My daddy, Billy Kaufman, opened Kaufman's Meat Plant at our present location in 1955. My family still works hard every day to ensure fresh quality cuts of beef, pork, and poultry. How about a tasty T-bone, ribeye, or New York strip steak? But to order at Kaufman's Meat and Place, just look for the signs near the intersection of US 1 and I-20 in Lexington. Call us at 356-0076 to place your order. Kaufman's Meat and Place, when you want the very best your money can buy.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
You're bringing your daughter to her favorite pop star's concert. Do you A, wear earplugs?
Isn't this fun, Dad?
I'll have a soft pretzel.
B, remember the moment with matching concert t-shirts?
That's gonna be $180. Or we can just take a photo.
C, show her how you used to do concerts.
We're going crowd surfing.
I can't. It's too heavy. Oh my God. Ah.
Or D, just roll with it.
Woo! Justin! Look at us! We're over here!
Justin! OMG! He just looked. I love you, Justin! I love you!
When it comes to parenting, there are no perfect answers. But that's okay, because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
The Red Cross responds to nearly 66,000 disasters every year, most of them house fires. Red Cross President and CEO Gail McGovern says you need to develop an evacuation plan and practice it, especially with your children. It takes just 2 minutes for a home to be engulfed in flames.
Practice those drills. We all think our kids know what to do. They don't. We need to teach them. We have started a large campaign where we're going into vulnerable communities and helping install smoke alarms. Already 92 lives were saved, and 4 of those lives were saved by a 5-year-old girl who remembered what we taught them during these fire drills, and she got her family out. We also have a slew of free apps that people can download onto their smartphones. It's what to do in every kind of disaster you can imagine, how to prepare and how to recover.
To help support all the Red Cross does and to make a financial donation, go to redcross.org. That's redcross.org.
You can save money and help the environment without taking a vow of poverty. How does that work? Well, by choosing Energy Star qualified lighting for your home. When you do, you'll become part of a growing national movement. Just go to EnergyStar.gov and click on Take the Change a Light Pledge. It takes only a few short seconds for you to have a long-term impact. Brighten your environmental future. From the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency.
Fox Sports Radio 1400. Online at foxsportsradio1400.com. On your phone with the iHeartRadio app. And on hundreds of devices like Alexa, Google Home, Xbox, and Sonos. An iHeart radio station.
What have you done for me lately? It's a fair question. Just don't lose sight of the bigger picture. Don't forget history. Lucky for us at Clemson, the answer to the questions, what have you done for me lately, and what have you done always, are the same. We win.
Final segment on a Wednesday afternoon. Thank you to Britt Ciancia. Thank you to Roddy Jones. Thank you for being a part of the program, your comments, thoughts, questions, and more. All right, so Hurricane Delta, which a couple of days ago looked like might have an impact on Saturday night's events in Death Valley. Currently, looking at the projections, now a 3-star hurricane. They do expect it to perhaps intensify again, back up to maybe even 4 stars before making landfall in what's going to be somewhere in the Lake Charles, Houston, New Orleans area for Louisiana, which it was just recently hit by a hurricane not all that long ago. You start looking at the storm surge, so to speak. You could talk from Pensacola, Florida, all the way to past Houston, Texas, west. I mean, it is a big storm. It's going to carry a lot of rain and water. But looking at the current spaghetti models, boy, I sound like I know something about the, don't I? Sound like I know something about meteorology.
Not only are you a hot dog, a grandstander, a showboat, and a prima donna, but you're a liar, too.
Okay, so I don't know a lot about hurricanes, but maybe know more about the Miami hurricanes than Hurricane Delta. But it appears that if there's anything that Clemson will get, it's going to be the remnants of the outer bands and strands of this hurricane. And given the timeline of Clemson's game at night against Miami, Saturday, quote-unquote, PM, this thing is going to be somewhere over Mississippi, Tennessee, and Arkansas. And if you just look at the sheer size of this storm right now and sort of what I would say extrapolate that out a little bit, you might have some wind, maybe a little rain. I just don't see, based on the hurricane, that being a big impact on the game. So I think that's a positive for Clemson, because a couple of days ago, it looked like by Saturday PM, it might be sitting right over the top of Death Valley. Now, Sunday, different story maybe. Sunday evening in the upstate, I could see you seeing some wind and rain, etc. But I think looking at it right now, meteorologist Swan reporting for duty, I think you're going to be okay. I think you're going to be okay in Death Valley. So that's a positive. 803-450-0086. That's your text line. That's your phone line. Call it. Leave us a message. Again, Amari Rogers spoke with the media earlier this week. Give us a peek behind the curtain, so to speak. Clemson's secret sauce. That story's coming up for our premium subscribers on ClemsonSportsTalk.com. Make sure you head over there, subscribe. Just $5.25 a month, $63.17 for a year. That's 18 cents a day to stand behind us, back us, and help us continue to grow as we provide you with the most digital content covering your Clemson Tigers. You heard it right. It's more digital content than any other site. 2-hour daily radio show, a multitude of podcasts under our platform, great shows and great content for you. ClemsonSportsTalk.com. I touched on it a little bit. The Lakers, I think this thing is probably over with. Again, I'm excited for Los Angeles. That's been my team since I was 10 years old. And whether it's been Magic, Kobe, LeBron, Shaq, that's been my team. So we're a win away from a title, and we hadn't been to the NBA Finals in, I think, a decade now, which is hard for me to believe. In Major League Baseball today, the Atlanta Braves knocked off the Miami Marlins 2-0. Atlanta leads that series 2-0. Currently, the Houston Astros, everybody loves the Astros. In the bottom of the sixth inning, the Astros leading Oakland 7-4. Tonight, 7:10 on TBS, Tampa Bay, the Rays will take on the New York Yankees. That series tied at 1. And then at 9 o'clock on Fox Sports 1, the Los Angeles Dodgers and the San Diego Padres will square off in Major League Baseball. So a big night of baseball for all the baseball fans as postseason action is rocking and rolling in the major leagues. And I know that Atlanta Braves fans have to be excited. You know, through that 60-game schedule, they were 35-25. They were playing really good down the stretch. Game 3 in that series between the Braves and the Marlins coming up tomorrow. And then Game 4 is on Friday. So they are knocking them out in a hurry in Major League Baseball. Game 5 will be played, if necessary, on Saturday. So loaded slate again for the Braves. I'm rooting for them. I told you, in Major League Baseball, I don't love the sport, but I got two teams, one in the American League, one in the National League. The Braves are my team in the National League, and again, up 2-0 in that NLDS. So, actually, is that a 7-game series or just a 5-game series? Have they shortened that? But Braves may clinch tomorrow. I'll have to double check. I got about 40 seconds. Let's see. Oh, come on. No, I don't want to see that. I want to see. Why? I want to search for the word clinch. Running out of time. Braves, can they? They only show 5 games. Maybe they're just playing a 5-game series. News to me. The baseball guy, I am not. That's okay. At least you know I'm not a liar. So if it's a 5-game series, the Braves can clinch tomorrow. We got to get out of here. We can't clinch until the weekend against the Hurricanes. At least clinch a victory. Until then, as always, y'all take care now. And go Tigers!
Sports Talk with Lawton Swan on Columbia's home for sports. Fox Sports Radio 1400. Now, Columbia's most dependable traffic. Sponsored by Pope Davis Tire and Automotive. Home of the best tire prices in Columbia. Guaranteed. Fox Sports Radio 1400 traffic.
As you head home this evening, look out for a wreck on I-20 eastbound at the I-26 split. Also a tie-up Piney Grove at Foxfire and Broad River at Rushmore. The 103.5 FM WVOC traffic tip line number is 343-1055.
This report is sponsored by Attorney Bill Green and the Green Team.
If you're in a wreck, you have enough to deal with these days. Call the Bill Green Law Firm. We're here to help.
2821 Millwood Avenue, Columbia, South Carolina.
Always think green when you collide. Call 771-2455.
Lawton Swan here. And I know in sports we're always talking about the big guy. Well, let me tell you, when you're buying a car, you don't need that. What you need to do is head down to Orangeburg to my good friends at Ferry Chevrolet Cadillac. 4 generations of family-owned business right there at Ferry Chevrolet. No Doc